Maine became the 22nd state to pass a red flag law, with voters in the state sending a clear and decisive message. Voters overwhelmingly passed Question 2 on Tuesday. Supporters say it was a better way of keeping guns away from people who shouldn't have them, citing the Lewiston, Maine mass shooting on October 2023 as a major reason to pass it. The law allows family members or officers to petition the court for an extreme risk protection order to seize guns or stop the purchase of a gun from someone suspecting of posing a significant danger to themselves or to others. It's the victory the Maine Gun Safety Coalition sought for years, and one that took 18 lives for it to become law. Does Tennessee have a red flag law?
I don't think so. And I think the biggest thing is, and maybe it's in there somewhere, maybe we need to look up specifically red flag law, but like what are the specifics of it? Like, you know, the red flag laws are basically anybody at any time can put a red flag on somebody stating that they feel like they shouldn't have guns. And it's like, well, are there specifics to that? Like, can anybody at any time just willy-nilly say, I don't think this person should have guns? Or are there specific guidelines to it? You have to, you know, it says you have to pose a significant threat to yourself or others. Okay, well, who gets to determine that? And what do they determine as a significant threat to yourself or others? For instance, in Florida, law enforcement can submit a request for a person to be reevaluated for their driver's license if they feel like that they're no longer competent and able to drive safely. So we can submit a request to the DMV to have them reevaluated. But it's only law enforcement that can do that, and it's only under specific guidelines. The same guidelines as like a Baker Act. There are specific guidelines that have to be met in order for somebody to be evaluated for mental health. I guess one of my big questions about it is, like, if anybody at any time can submit a red flag for anybody, then we're getting to the point that will cause problems. I mean, again, if anybody can submit it without any specific guidelines, what is that going to do to the owner? Do they have time to, is it just going to be like somebody's going to show up at your door and say, hey, somebody submitted a red flag, we're going to take your guns until it can clear otherwise? Because then it's like, well, are you innocent until proven guilty, or are you guilty until proven innocent? Because now somebody somewhere is just going to submit something. I'm not going to be aware of it, and then I'm just going to get a knock on the door because somebody submitted red flags, and they're going to take away my guns, and I'm not going to have time to say anything about it, or they're going to take it away right away. You know, so many questions that I have about that.
Yeah, you know, what comes to my mind as you say that is my divorce. When I was going through the whole process and everything, and my ex got upset, and he decided that he didn't want me to live in a home with guns as long as I had any custody of the kids. And he tried to put that in the divorce agreement, that I would surrender all of my firearms. And I talked to my divorce lawyer about it, and I said, this is what he said. And she laughed, like she heard it, and she literally went, and she's like, that wouldn't hold up in court. She's like, you have a clean criminal record, you have a Second Amendment right. There is absolutely no way a Monroe County judge is going to approve of disarming you. But I kind of think to myself, I see this red flag law, and I think to myself, yeah, I have very little doubt that if we lived in a state with a red flag law, he wouldn't try to pull that card.
That's basically what the red flag law says, is that anybody at any time can submit a red flag on somebody for whatever reason, and then they come and take your guns and then now you have to what? You have to prove it. I mean, like I said, there's some questions I don't really know the answers to. I'm just speculating right now. But based on what I do know about the red flag, it's exactly what it is anybody at any time can, for whatever reason, submit something against you saying they don't feel like you should have guns. Then they're going to come and take your guns, and now you have to try to prove that it's not true instead of the other way around. And I always tell people all the time, it's like when, some of these states are passing these laws where they say that you can fight the police if you feel the police were not in the purview of their duties. And it's like, well, who are you, Joe Schmo citizen with zero law enforcement training or education or boots on ground, to say or have any credibility to say that the cop was not in the purview of their duties? So now we get to fight the police just because we think that they're not in the purview of their duties. I mean, there's a huge case not too long ago with the female deputy in California, or officer. I'm not really sure what agency she worked for, but that female agency or officer in California who responded to a call. Guy jumped her, beat the crap out of her, got her gun, unloaded an entire magazine on her. Luckily, he didn't hit her. Backup showed up. He was arrested. Why he wasn't turned into Swiss cheese, I don't know, but he was arrested, and they dropped all charges because they said that he felt threatened. He felt his life wasn't threatened because of the officer wasn't in the purview of her duties. And it's like, so this female officer just got the shit beat out of her, almost died because he got her gun, and no charges were filed against him. Matter of fact, there was a huge interview with her. She quit because of it. And it's like, this is what we're coming down to. Joe Schmo, average citizen with no training or experience, is allowed to now fight the police. So if you're going to tell me that Joe Schmo, average citizen with no credibility whatsoever, can file a red flag against me saying that he or she feels like I shouldn't have guns, then they're going to come and take it, and now I have to fight to prove that they were wrong instead of the other way around. It's very controversial. Now we're drawing a very big line, not even a fine line. We're drawing a very big line now where anybody at any time can take your guns. I don't even have to know them. Somebody that doesn't even know me, somebody that I don't even know, knows that I carry, doesn't want me to carry, and then she can just submit something against me. Is that what we're coming down to? I mean,
So I looked it up on the USCCA, and it said if granted, the court order allows law enforcement to confiscate firearms and ammunition. The individual may also lose their concealed carry permits and is prohibited from buying or owning guns, usually for up to 1 year. And it says one major concern is in some states, the subject of the order is not informed beforehand and has no chance to defend themselves in court before property is seized. Typically, the Americans have a right to face their accuser, review evidence, and receive a fair trial. But in red flag law cases, a judge can approve firearm compensation without prior notification or criminal charges. This raises serious due process concerns. A law-abiding person could lose their firearms for 6 months, a year, or more without even being convicted of a crime.
I was going to say that before you even read that. I'm like, so now we're just skipping due process. Somebody can submit a red flag complaint with no evidence, no credibility, just saying that they don't want me to have firearms, and it can get approved, and I'm going to get a knock at the door, and it'll be like, oh, we get to take your guns, and then you have to prove it otherwise. And it sounds very controversial, and all it's going to take is people who don't want people to have guns are randomly just going to start submitting red flags on people, and their guns are going to get taken away. And I think we're getting into a very bad area here with states that are allowing this to happen. What states have it?
First one, take a guess.
Yeah, a bunch of
California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Florida, Hawaii, Illinois, Indiana, Maryland, Vermont, Washington, Maryland. Why'd they put Maryland twice? They have some doubles in here for no reason. Michigan, Nevada, do better, USCCA. New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, Oregon, Rhode Island, Virginia, and the District of Columbia.
It surprises me because it's a bunch of blue states, but it's weird that Florida has red flag laws. But again, I go back to the driver's license thing. It's like only law enforcement can submit that. There are things that I know that I'd have to look it back up. It's been a while. I know that you can have two parties, immediate family members. Two people can actually have go to a judge and submit paperwork stating that they feel a family member shouldn't have a driver's license anymore, and they have to two people have to file a thing, then it goes to the judge, and they have to argue it with the judge and say why, and then the judge will determine 80-year-old grandma or something shouldn't be driving anymore because she's a danger to herself and everybody else, and they'll go get reevaluated. But it's not just a thing. It's not like it's going to be like, okay, you don't need any credibility. You could just file it, and the judge can sign off of it, and your driver's license is going to be taken away. It's like, no, you have to go argue with the judge. and then they got to sign off on it, and then the driver's license doesn't get just taken away. She'll have to go in and do a driver's license reevaluation. And then if she passes, she passes, she goes. It's not like they're just gonna be like, okay, and you take it away. But even then, there's still a lot of fine line and fine tape and guidelines with that. They don't just willy nilly take somebody's driver's license away, which sounds like here it's like, yeah, anybody can just submit it and get your guns taken away. And then you're having to fight to prove it. Again, we're talking about Sixth Amendment due process, innocent until proven guilty things, and it's like reasonable belief, preponderance of evidence, all these normal things that we hear in court and crime is being taken away for, Joe Schmo citizen to just have your guns taken away. And, all these gun safety groups and stuff like that are saying, oh, this is a big win for us. It's like, no, you're taking away our Second Amendment. If I were to say to somebody, I'm going to file a red flag because I don't like what you say, and I'm going to go file this and say that you can no longer be on social media because I don't like what you say. There would be uproar talking about the First Amendment. Oh, you're taking away our First Amendment. You're taking away our First Amendment. But nobody gives two craps about people who are trying to take away the Second Amendment. No one amendment is greater than the other one. So, all these gun control people that are trying to take away our Second Amendment use their First Amendment to try to take away our Second Amendment. But if I were to go and say, I want to take away your Second Amendment because I don't like what you say, there would be uproar, there'd be riots in the streets. But it's like, why are we now thinking it's okay to just file something and take away someone's Second Amendment rights just because you don't like them having it? Now, I know it says in there that, oh, if you feel someone's a threat to themselves or others, you can do it. But we all know how this is going to turn out. It's going to turn out that people are just going to start filing red flags because
I don't like my ex, therefore
Yeah.
I'm going to file the red flag just so I can be a jerk. Because let's face it, I've never done anything that would actually have given my ex the impression that I would be a threat because I'm a firearm owner.
Right. Now,
But he said that he didn't trust me to have them because I wouldn't lock them up properly, fill in the blank. He had no opinion of my firearms while he was living with me. It's like I had my firearm. It was in its plastic box that I got when I purchased it. It was on the top shelf of our closet. I had to stand on something to reach it, so I knew our kids couldn't reach it. But suddenly, I wasn't safe with them. Suddenly, it was a problem. Why? Well, because I had got on his phone, found his mistress's number, had a conversation with her, and got some dirt on him, and he didn't like that.
Yeah, and that's what it's going to turn into. It's like, okay, if legitimately someone has attempted suicide, or that a family member has been talking about suicide and they have become a significant threat to themselves and others, and they do have firearms. Okay, well, maybe law enforcement needs to get involved, and law enforcement are the only ones at that point that are allowed to submit anything. Law enforcement or judges, not random Joe Schmo citizens, can do it. And that's the problem is, to your point, it's not going to be, I really do feel like he's a threat to himself and others, and we need to get his guns out of the house in order to protect himself and other people. It's going to be petty bull crap where people are going to start submitting these red flag laws. And then again, you have none of the typical rights that you would have under a normal criminal investigation. Now a huge we're not even talking about Sixth Amendment now, we're talking about huge Fourth Amendment violations. Because Joe Schmo citizen said that he or she feels like I shouldn't have a gun. Now my Fourth Amendment rights are going to be violated. You're going to come in here and take my guns and I can't fight it until later. Yeah, it is very controversial. I think we're opening up these states are opening up a can of worms that's going to go downhill. And again, we already talked about gun control doesn't work. Let's face it, there are so many laws out there as it is. Gun control doesn't work. So let's add more gun control. Our three most violent cities in our nation have the strictest gun control laws yet they have the most gun violence in the nation. Hello, so let's do some red flag laws. Okay. The people that don't have the gun, shouldn't have the guns right now anyway. So all you're doing, and I'm not the first person to say this, and I won't be the last person to say this, all you're doing is creating regulations and more control over the law-abiding citizens, the people that aren't actually out there committing the crimes, because the people that shouldn't have the guns have them anyway. The states with the most gun control laws have the most gun violence. So it's like, when are we going to wake up and see that this stuff doesn't work and all you're doing is affecting the law-abiding citizen? The United States has 50% of the stockpile of guns worldwide. We have more guns than the rest of the world combined. Our citizens have more guns than the rest of the world combined. If we had a gun problem, we would know it. There's enough guns in this nation for one person to have, every person to have 10 guns. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but I know we carry like 50% of the stockpile of guns worldwide. And that's not our military, that's our citizens. So if we had gun violence problems, we would know it. If you take away our top 3 most gun violent crime cities in our nation, our gun violence statistics would fall. Like, I think I read an article not too long ago. It said that the United States falls number 3 on the most gun violence in the world. But if you take away our top 3 highest cities for gun violence, we drop to like bottom 7.
So, and those are all Democratic-run cities with
high
gun control laws.
Yeah, I mean, we literally fall to like the bottom 7. 3 cities, and we'd fall to the bottom 7. Our nation does not have a gun problem. We have a problem with these specific cities that are Democrat-run, that have the most gun control, and they have the most gun violence. And the same states that now enact these red flag laws. What do you think is going to happen? These let's take Detroit or Chicago, Detroit, Portland, Memphis has a big problem. I don't remember what the top 3 states are. I know Chicago and Detroit, I believe. But these criminals that aren't supposed to have the guns have them anyway. So let's say I want to go file a red flag against these people. Is it only for being a danger to themselves and others? Or can I file a red flag saying, hey, they're a convicted felon, they're not supposed to have it anyway? And what are you going to go do? Seize guns that they don't technically have anyway? Are you only going to be able to seize guns that are registered under the ATF? Because a lot of these states, Tennessee doesn't have a state registration for guns. It's only through the ATF. So what are you going to go do? Ransack their house, get a search warrant, and be able to ransack somebody's house to find every gun that they have, because these convicted felons aren't supposed to have them anyway. So I'm going to be like, okay, fine, red flag, convicted felon has a gun. You're not going to go there anyway, because let's face it, they're not supposed to have the guns anyway. We're not taking it from them. They're still getting them. So how are we going to be able to regulate this anyway? They're going to go on to some site and say, well, this person doesn't have any guns registered to them anyway, so there's nothing to take away. Or are they going to go, okay, well, somebody submitted a red flag on this person that said they have guns. We don't have any documentation that they do have any guns registered to them, so we're going to go ransack their house and completely rip it apart and see if they have any guns. That's a huge issue as well.
By the way it is worded and stuff, I'm under the impression that, yeah, it would result in police showing up and searching their house to see if they have firearms. Kind of like what Kamala Harris said, where she said, just because you're a legal gun owner doesn't mean that we shouldn't be allowed to come in and make sure you're following the laws when it comes to storing.
Going to come in for no reason whatsoever other than just to make sure I have it locked up. Yeah, that's a huge violation of the Fourth Amendment. And again, you got some cities do have registration laws. You're allowed to have a gun, but you have to register your gun, so they'll have it in a database. Tennessee doesn't have a registration law, so if you don't purchase a gun through the ATF, or you get gifted a gun from a friend or something like that, there are a lot of guns around some of these states that don't have registration laws. So the only way they're going to be able to document is through the ATF. And if I purchase a gun through an FFL or somebody comes in and purchases a gun through us, we do the background check. We log it in our books that we sold this gun to you. But then 2 years later, you give that gun to your cousin, or you decide you're going to sell it to a friend. There's going to be no registration on that gun now, other than maybe, hopefully, you'll take a bill of sale. You're going to sell this gun to somebody. So you're going to write up your own bill of sale, give it to them. That way you can document you no longer have that gun. But then somebody submits a red flag on you, and the only documentation they have is through the ATF. So now local sheriff's office or local law enforcement agency is going to have to do a trace through the ATF. The ATF is going to see that gun came from XYZ Wholesale to Parabellum Defense Services. Parabellum Defense Services sold it to Melody. And the last record that's on file with the ATF is you have that gun. So now they're going to come rip through that house, and the only thing you're going to have is a bill of sale saying you gave it to Joe Schmo Citizen. Or what if somebody submitted a red flag on that Joe Schmo Citizen? The ATF isn't going to have documentation that you sold it to them. Law enforcement isn't going to have any registration that you sold it to them. So the only thing they're going to know is somebody submitted a red flag on this person saying they have a gun, but there's no documentation through the sheriff's office, the PD, or the ATF that they have that gun because you gave it to them personally, which in Tennessee is allowed. The only documentation is going to be your bill of sale that you keep for your record, but they're not going to have that. So they're just going to show up at this guy's house because somebody said he has a gun and start ripping through it to see if he does have that gun.
So it sounds to me that your concern is it will inevitably result in a gun registry being created and probably even the legalization of private sales.
Yeah, it's very possible if they want to keep track of everybody's guns so somebody can file a red flag and they can go, oh, let's see what guns he has. So yeah, either a registration, like you said, where everybody's got to legally do it and you can't private sale anymore, which, a lot of people don't even want to buy guns from FFLs because they don't want the ATF knowing what guns they have in the first place. Yeah, we've even experienced that as an FFL ourselves, where people don't want to purchase guns from FFLs. So yeah, to your point, registration laws requiring everybody to register their guns, or I'm concerned that that's just going to cause them to be able to come into your house with no cause, no reason, not even reasonable suspicion or probable cause, because somebody somewhere submitted a red flag against you, and they're going to be able to come into your house and search your house and rip it apart looking for guns. And the thing with search warrants are you're only supposed to search areas that could possibly contain the item that you're searching for. Guns can pretty much be anywhere. So if they're going to go search, if they're going to have a blanket search warrant based off of no reasonable suspicion or probable cause because of these red flags, they're going to be able to go through and rip apart your house down to like freaking nitty gritty looking for guns that you may possibly have. And then what happens if they don't find any?
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to pay? Is somebody going to pay for the fact that they just ripped apart your house?
Probably not.
Are you going to be able to sue the sheriff's office for unlawfully entering your house with no probable cause? Now, granted, search warrants can have their own controversy as it is, because people are like, oh, you have to have probable cause to enter my house. Well, the only way to get a search warrant is to prove that you have cause to get that search warrant. You have to articulate to the judge why a search warrant is necessary, and you have probable cause to get that search warrant signed. But the red flag laws takes all that away and just says, oh yeah, and now here you are, like we talked about. So yeah, that is more of my concern than the registration. I mean, yeah, the registration laws could be a huge concern too, but just violating my Fourth Amendment right, violating my Sixth Amendment rights, violating my Second Amendment rights, all because my ex got pissed off that we're getting a divorce, to your point. So yeah, it's going to be a big problem.
Well, in other news, Ohio Supreme Court considers constitutional challenge to gun ban in bars. The Ohio Supreme Court is scheduled to hear arguments on Wednesday on a state law that criminalizes carrying a firearm in a bar or other establishment serving liquor when the carrier also consumes alcohol. State of Ohio versus Elijah Sterblin centers on whether the state's prohibition of combining guns and alcohol violates the right to keep and bear arms protected by the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. The central issue is the legal standard courts must use to judge modern gun regulations, a standard recently established by the U.S. Supreme Court that looks at America's historical tradition of gun control. We have a historical tradition of gun control?
Not that I'm aware. Depends on what historical condition they're talking about.
Yeah. Actually, that does make me wonder, what are the earliest gun control laws? Like, what were the very first ones? Are we talking like George Washington days, or?
Probably none.
I have no idea. I'm not going to make a guess. I have to look into that. So the whole idea is it a violation of our Second Amendment rights to not be able to carry while consuming alcohol? And I do know Tennessee is stricter about alcohol with firearms than they are with alcohol with driving. Like, there's a certain percentage of alcohol you can legally have in your system when operating a vehicle. But when it comes to carrying a firearm, according to Tennessee laws, just one sip is enough to criminalize you.
Yeah, there's a zero tolerance in Tennessee. You cannot consume alcohol while carrying your gun, period. Matter of fact, most waitresses and staff at some of these locations, these restaurants that serve liquor, are trained to notify law enforcement if they observe a patron consuming alcohol while carrying a firearm. That brings up, questions on like open carry versus concealed carry. Obviously, if you're open carrying and order a beer, they're going to call because you can't consume alcohol. And then that would bring up, well, if I'm concealed carrying, they're not going to know. But yeah, Tennessee has.
But if they find out.
If they find out, yeah. Tennessee has zero tolerance. There is no 0.08 legal limit for driving. It's a zero tolerance. If you consume alcohol while carrying a firearm, you can be arrested. And I mean, I agree with that. I don't know if I can honestly say I agree with this Ohio thing. They're not saying you can't carry. They're not taking away your Second Amendment right to carry. They're saying if you're going to carry, you need to carry responsibly. I don't think I have to tell any adult what alcohol will do to you. I mean, I use the adage when I teach these classes and we get to this section and I say, look, we don't drink and drive, so we're not going to drink and gun. You should not carry your firearm while consuming alcohol. And if I need to tell you what alcohol does to you, then you're probably not old enough and mature enough to be handling a firearm. And if anybody wants to disagree with me with that, then we'll have a debate about it. But the fact is, they're sitting here wanting to take away the law that says you can't consume alcohol while carrying a firearm. And I would imagine that the only reason this is being brought up, what does it say, Ohio State versus who? Probably got arrested for consuming alcohol. Elijah.
Yeah, actually, he wasn't simply carrying while consuming alcohol. It says, surveillance videos show Elijah ordering and drinking at least one alcoholic beverage. He later got in a fist fight with another patron in the men's restroom. As other people attempted to break up the fight, Elijah pulled out his pistol and shot the man in the neck. Following the shooting, patrons were evacuated from the bar. He was convicted of inducing panic, illegal possession of firearm in a bar while liquor is served. I do find it interesting that he's not being
arrested for attempted murder or
murder. So, which makes me think, because that's not mentioned, it must have been considered justifiable force.
Yeah, I mean, I can't.
So, which means he was in a situation, at least assuming I'm correct, because it seems to me this source would have put down, oh, and he's being tried for murder.
Yeah, but, I mean, we'd have to look up the specific incident on that.
But let's say it is. It was justified. That means if he had followed the law, he would have been in a situation where he could have justified self-defense or needed self-defense and did not have it.
Yeah, I mean, that whole incident brings up a lot of questions. And again, I'd have to look at the incident to really determine for sure. Was it justifiable? I don't know. Did they just alleviate that from the article? I don't know Ohio's laws on justifiable use of force, but typically deadly force is only authorized when there's a deadly force threat against you. And that typically doesn't
Include
include two drunk
fight.
guys in a fist fight. Typically, you can't shoot somebody just because they punch you in the face. Now, again, there could be a bunch more details that we don't know. It's only speculation at this point, but yeah, I mean, even if it was a justifiable shooting, he can still face charges for carrying a firearm while intoxicated, or even just consuming alcohol.
It doesn't even say he was intoxicated.
Yeah, just
So
consuming alcohol to
it
begin
could
with.
be he had a beer, which isn't really enough to affect you. This guy jumped him, and he really and truly felt like he needed to protect himself. It was justified under law, but he's being convicted because he drank a beer.
Well, and then the whole thing is something there about inducing fear or something like that. I mean,
inducing panic.
So did he start it? I mean, the only reason I have to look up that Ohio law.
Yeah, like there's a lot of stuff that we don't know. Who started the fight? And was the other guy armed too?
Right, and honestly, I would say none of that really matters, because the question would be, should it be legal to be able to consume alcohol while carrying a firearm? Because Ohio is trying to state that we're going to take that away, and I say no. It should be illegal to carry your firearm and consume alcohol. Just to bring up a point you just said, well, one beer isn't enough to, well, then that brings up the argument then. Should I be able to consume one beer while carrying my gun if it's not going to affect me any? Because some people can argue I can have 1 or 2 beers and drive home because I'm still under the legal 0.08 limit, because there is a legal limit. So should there be a legal limit if somebody can consume alcohol while possessing their firearm and not get in trouble?
I find myself thinking that if you are sober enough to drive, you should be sober enough to carry. Now, but at the same time, I'm not allowed to drink a beer on my way home. I can drink a beer, then go home, but I cannot drink a beer on my way home. So it does create a tricky area right there.
If I know I'm driving, I won't have a beer, period. 1 beer, I don't care. 2 beers, I don't care if I'm under the 0.08 legal limit that I could drive home. I have a 0 tolerance for it. I have a huge pet peeve with DUI. I've done too many traffic fatalities involving DUIs, and 9 times out of 10, the person who is drunk kills somebody else and walks away. I hate DUIs with a passion, because first, again, I don't feel like I should have to explain what alcohol does to you, but alcohol tends to be a rage-inducing drink. It typically brings out the worst in people. Now, you got funny drunks and sad drunks and depressed drunks and angry drunks, but typically, in my experience, you get angry drunks, especially the ones that are out and about, which is probably why a fist fight ensued anyway. And again, I don't like assuming because we don't know really what happened in that incident, but you just draw a line now. I mean, are we going to say you're an adult, and if you want to drink and drive, you're going to be responsible for the outcome? You're an adult. If you want to drink and have your gun on you, you're going to be responsible for the outcome. Therefore, my question would then be, if you get in a self-defense encounter where you shoot somebody and it's a justifiable self-defense encounter, then you're fine. But if you get in what would be a justifiable self-defense encounter, but you're intoxicated, does that therefore no longer become justified? You can drive all you want. If you get in an accident and it was an accident, then it's an accident. If you get in an accident while intoxicated, then you're going to jail. So the question would be, if we're going to allow you to be an adult and be responsible and drink and have your firearm, but you get in what would be a justifiable self-defense deadly force altercation where you deploy your firearm, but it's determined that you are now over whatever legal limit they set. Let's just say it's the same as driving, 0.08. Now it's no longer justified. You go to jail. Whether or not it would have been justified, you're intoxicated, just like drinking and driving. You can drive normally, but if you're drunk,
if you are intoxicated and you get in a traffic collision, it most likely was your fault.
Yeah.
But There's definitely situations, like for instance, people tend to want to shoot up places that they know are gun-free zones. A bar is a gun-free zone. So let's say you're at the bar, you have your firearm on your side, you're at .09, and somebody comes in looking for trouble, and you stop the threat. You're going to go to jail?
Well, that's the question I would bring up is, okay, well, what are we going to do then? Are we going to set a legal limit? And if we do set a legal limit and you go over that legal limit and it's determined you went over that legal limit because of a self-defense situation, then what do we do? Are you still going to be justified for the shooting, but still going to go to jail because now you're over the legal limit? Because nobody gets in their car drinking and driving and going, I'm going to kill somebody tonight.
Mm-hmm.
But because they were drinking, they get impaired, they crash and kill somebody, they feel bad for it. Almost every person that I've dealt with that was drinking and killed somebody are crying and going, I didn't mean to, I can't believe I did this. And it's like, you made the choice to drink prior to this happening. You made the choice to get in the car. I don't care if you meant to, your actions killed that person. So would it then be, well, your actions stopped an active shooter in your example, but you were still over the legal limit, so you're still going to be arrested for, GUI. I don't know, gunning under the influence. I don't know. You won't be charged with murder. You'll still be cleared from the self-defense, but you're still going to. So yeah, that's what we have to ask ourselves these questions now. Are we going to allow it? If we're going to allow it, are we going to set a limit? What happens if we go over that limit? Because then it just begs the question, anybody now, because look, they're trying to take away our guns as it is. And again, we always talk about drawing that line. They're going to be like, everybody knows alcohol impairs judgment. It reduces reflexes. It blurs your vision. It can cause confusion. And okay, maybe one or two isn't going to affect you that much, arguably, but that's all they got to do is say that. This defensive situation that led to a deadly force encounter may have been prevented if this person wasn't drinking because his judgment and senses are impaired, period. And now they're going to start asking that. What if this could have been different? And I'm not one person that would ever say, I don't like the what ifs, ifs and buts, because we could if and but something all day, but that's what they're going to start doing. I tell people all the time, gun owners, we are our own worst enemies, not the anti-gun activists, not the leftists, not the people trying to take away our guns. We are each other's worst enemies. I'm pro Second Amendment. I carry. You're pro Second Amendment. You carry. I tend to open carry a lot. I can't tell you how many pro Second Amendment gun advocates, people who support carrying guns, will call me dumb, will tell me I'm stupid, who will tell me all the reasons why I suck because I'm open carrying. And these are pro Second Amendment people. We are our worst enemies. There's the two biggest debates in the firearm community are open carry and concealed carry, and carrying status red and carrying status yellow. If I've told people I carry status red with my safety off, and supposed gun advocate, and they're like, oh my God, what is this? The OK Corral? Why do you need to keep one in the And we argue with ourselves. The left don't have to take away our guns because we make ourselves look bad. So what's going to happen is, if we start drawing this line with consuming alcohol while carrying firearms, we're just going to get at each other's throats because we're our own worst enemies. The left and the gun advocates don't have to do anything because we're constantly arguing with each other. It's like, look, if I open carry and you concealed carry, fine. That's your provocative. That's what you're allowed to do. I support you, but that's not what they do. I've literally had people in the store telling me how they think I'm stupid for open carrying. You have posted pictures of me open carrying in places to support businesses and show that it's okay to open carry. And the comments we get are like, oh, people who really know how to shoot don't open carry. It's like we insult each other. We're our own worst enemies. So as soon as this starts happening, somebody's going to drink, whether it's 1 or 2 or 10. Somebody's going to get in an altercation where they deploy their firearm. The left is going to eat it up, but then we are going to start eating each other up. It's going to be like, oh, are you pro carrying while drinking, or are you not pro carrying and drinking? And then everybody's going to start coming up with their own reasons why, open carrying's stupid. Open carrying makes people feel uncomfortable. Open carrying means you're the first person to get shot. All those are the things I hear all the time. So now all of a sudden we're going to start hearing all these things and we're going to just start fighting with each other. And again, I say it all the time once we draw that line. So no, I don't agree. I mean, I really don't agree. If you're adult enough to carry your firearm, then you should be adult enough not to drink. I mean, come on. I tell people it's like drinking and driving. Wait till you get home. Somebody give me right now a good reason why you should be able to have a beer out in public while carrying your firearm. Why can't you just wait till you get home? Or if you want to drink, I'm pro Second Amendment. Don't carry your gun. Sorry, but it's just you're going to draw that line, and we're going to start seeing more incidents of people intoxicated. Then the anti-gun activists are going to come out and be like, see, this is why we can't trust them. Conservatives like their beer. They love to drink and they love their guns. Now they're mixing it together, and it's going to be another reason for them to try to take away our guns. And we're going to give it to them because we're our own worst enemies. We're going to start giving them reasons to take away our guns. The state of Tennessee took guns away from instructors. When I teach the permit class, I used to be allowed to have firearms out here when I teach the class. Obviously, there was no ammunition in the classroom, but because one instructor was dumb, had a loaded firearm in the classroom, shot a student in the leg, now no instructors across the state can have firearms to demonstrate proper safe handlings during state certified classes. And I sent a long email to the state, and I tell people, I'm like, that's great for the anti-gun activists, because all they got to do now is find out that the state of Tennessee can't even trust their instructors to have firearms. Why should we trust anybody to have firearms? So as soon as we start mixing alcohol with guns, we're just going to give the anti-gun activists more fuel, because things are going to start happening and they're not going to be able to trust us, and they're going to take it away. And that's my opinion on it. I really don't think we should be mixing them together.
Okay, yeah, I can see why you make that point and everything. So all in all, you disagree. You like the rules of no guns in bars. That is,
No.
Just no guns while consuming.
Right. I mean, Tennessee says you can carry a firearm in a place that serves alcohol. You just can't consume it unless the owner of the establishment asks you to leave. Then you have to leave. It's just like private property. So yeah, go to Applebee's, go to Chili's, go to Red Lobster. All these places are places that serve alcohol. Shoot, go sit inside a bar. Sure. But if you're going to carry your gun, then you don't need to be consuming. I just feel like that's a mix that we don't want to mix together. And, if other people disagree, then other people disagree. I just don't think we should give the anti-gun activists more fuel to the fire. When I go out, I never, ever drink when I'm out in public. Ever.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time it's because I know I'm driving. But that's not an excuse, because, well, you can drive. Most, I don't even want to say most, the majority, 95% of the time, when I go out, I'm carrying my firearm, and I'm not going to consume alcohol. So, if I want a beer, which I don't really drink that much anyway, I can wait till I get home. I just don't understand. Just wait till you get home. And then, it's like, okay, well, we're disarming each other now. It's like, okay, if I want to go have a beer out with my friends, now I can't have a firearm to properly defend myself. Now you're disarming me because I want to go have a beer. And that brings up a whole different ballgame. It's like, oh, Andrew is, he's pro Second Amendment, but he's also pro disarming people. It's like, look, if you go out with your friends, there's always a designated driver. If you go out with 10 people or 5 people and everybody's going to drink, there's always one person that can't drink because he's the designated driver. well, then
Give that guy a gun.
you'll have one person that's going to be carrying the firearm for you. And then people, I could imagine people going, well, we get Ubers now. We can all drink and just Uber home.
Well, you can hire a security guard to follow you
Yeah,
around.
I mean, sure, hey, I will Uber you around and carry my firearm and I'll, but yeah, I don't think, I think we'll go down a path we don't want to go down. I think it's going to fuel the fire for the anti-gun activists to give us more reasons to take it away. I'd really like to know more information on that.
On what led up to the
What led up
altercation?
to it? Yeah, how much did he have? How intoxicated was he? Was he
Yeah,
intoxicated?
it could have
at
been
all?
like he simply took a couple sips out of his beer,
Yeah,
came out. There was a guy who he came across in the bathroom who he happened to already have bad blood with. The
Right,
guy
right.
was intoxicated and came at him.
Maybe that guy already had a deadly force thing against him, and that's why there's so many ifs,
Yeah,
ands, and
there's
buts about it.
so many ways it could have played out, and
Yeah.
they don't give you a lot. They're just
Right.
like, he got in a fist fight in the bathroom, shot the guy in the neck,
Yeah,
and
we
now
really have to look it up ourselves. I don't know. I think that's a recipe for disaster because, I would, you hear me say it all the time. I have no faith in people anymore. And maybe that's because I spent so long as a cop and you see what happens behind closed doors. But it's like, this may be a very controversial statement, but we can't be adults anymore. If I believed that people could be responsible enough to go out and have one or two beers to the point where they're not going to get intoxicated and carry their firearm. Sure. And you know what? I'd be willing to say the majority of us probably could. The majority of people probably could have one or two, carry their firearm, and be completely fine.
Most people who go to bars do not have to crawl home. Most of them. I mean, there definitely are people who reach that point, but the majority of people
can have one or two.
Most bar crawls are not really a bar crawl.
But they've done studies to show that even one or two beers does affect your reflexes enough, and it does impair your senses. Maybe not to the point where you cannot function, but it does impair you enough that, again, I revert back to what I said earlier, is all it's going to take is the courts now. Let's say you get in a justifiable self-defense situation. I tell people all the time, you still have to prove it in court. You still have to convince a jury of your peers that what you did was justified. It's not black and white. Just because it says it in the Tennessee code that you can do this doesn't mean you're still not going to have to convince a jury of your peers. And the defense attorneys are going to eat you alive. They're going to make you second guess what you did, how you did it, why you did it. They're going to ask you if you could have done something differently, and they're going to tear it down and make you look like the victim and hopefully make it look like you were not justified. That's what they do. It's a dog and pony show in the courts. So you're going to give the defense attorneys fuel for the fire for the self-defense, because they don't have to convince you. They have to convince a jury of your peers that what you did wasn't justified. And all they got to do is break down and go, well, look, he had two beers, and we'll bring up the stats and we'll see, look, stats have shown to impair judgment. Maybe this whole situation could have been different if he wasn't consuming alcohol, even if it was just two, and they'll break it down and make you look bad. So you're just adding fuel to the fire to get a defense attorney to convince a jury of your peers that what you did wasn't justified. And we see it all the time in these courts now. What should have been a cut and dry case, beyond a burden of proof, beyond reasonable doubt, preponderance of evidence, all those fancy terms you want to say, and then they still get off the hook, because when it goes to court, it's more about of a dog and pony show. Who can convince who can present a better argument to the jury. And you're giving the defense a very strong argument against, your use of deadly force. And I think it could go bad really quick.
Okay, so we can conclude that what they're doing to add more gun control in Maine, you are not for, and the steps that are being considered to loosen gun control in Ohio, you're not for either.
I guess so.
That's a strange turn of events. You think you know a guy. No, actually, if I had to guess, I would have said that you have a very low tolerance for intoxicated people. Just in general,
Yeah,
they're a very disliked minority in your book. Alrighty. Well, I guess that sums it up then.
I guess so.
Anything you need to add?
Let me know what you think. Like I said, if you disagree, I'm welcome to debate and hear your comments constructively. Thanks.